Welcome back to The Big Picture. What can be said in the healthcare debate that hasn't been said before?
Well, Alex, enter Minnesota Republican Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. She took to the House floor last night to warn about a provision in the healthcare bill that she says authorizes school-based health clinics, which she called sex clinics. She said it would lead to students being whisked away during school hours for abortions without parental consent.
Does that mean that someone's 13-year-old daughter could walk into a sex clinic, have a pregnancy test done, be taken away to the local Planned Parenthood abortion clinic, have their abortion, be back and go home on the school bus that night? Mom and dad are never the wiser.
But the health care bill also says these school-based clinics would follow parental notification laws that are already in place. Furthermore, these clinics are not new. And according to independent fact-check groups, this is another case of false claims by Congresswoman Bachmann. She already has a lengthy history of controversial remarks, of course. It was a year ago on Hardball when she suggested that then-presidential candidate Barack Obama had anti-American views. So is the Congressman's latest missive helping or hurting the Republican Party? Here to make their case, progressive blogger Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee at boldprogressives.org. Also conservative blogger Matt Lewis with politicsdaily.com and townhall.com. Adam, I'm going to ask you, every time Michele Bachmann says something and Democrats get exercised because it's simply false, doesn't that still take attention away from what the Democrats really want to talk about?
It does take attention away. And I think it's important to start any conversation about Michele Bachmann, and this issue in particular, with two important caveats. One is Michele Bachmann is crazy. Number two is that, yes, the entire intent here is to take attention away from the core issue at the center of the health care debate, which is the public health insurance option. But there's a reason that they're taking attention away. It's because the public option is overwhelmingly popular, so the only Republican strategy is to distract, distract, distract. Now, there happen to be some very gifted distractors in the Republican Party, like John Kyle from Arizona. He's a senator. But she's kind of like the JV team. The Republicans don't really want her on the field. They'd prefer that she stays off. Why? Because she's crazy. But she keeps coming back on, and I actually think that her being the face of the distraction is actually very hurtful to Republicans in the long run.
Matt Lewis, your view.
Well, first of all, I find it interesting that my worthy adversary here is twice referred to a U.S. member of Congress as, quote, crazy. Not exactly the kind of rhetoric that we like to see on television. But look, here's the deal. I think that one very possible thing that could come out of this is an amendment explicitly prohibiting these school-based clinics from referring girls to abortion clinics. David, there are still a number of states and the District of Columbia that do not have parental consent laws.
Matt,
so
they can't do it right now. Matt, they can't do it right now. And the independent group PolitiFact said that Michele Bachmann, this claim is flat out wrong. It's false. Whether it's said by her, whether it's said by conservative radio, whether it's said by conservative bloggers, it's wrong. You can't do that right now. So if you're going to try to distract attention from healthcare, why not do it on something where you're more factually based and factually sound?
Well, David, my understanding is that there's still a handful of states that do not have parental consent laws, and the District of Columbia. My understanding is that, look, if it's so easy to do and if it's a non-issue, why not have an amendment explicitly prohibiting school-based clinics from referring underage girls to have abortions without parental consent? Clearly, there are liberals in this country who believe that it's, maybe your daughter has to have permission to get her ears pierced or a tattoo, but not to have an abortion.
Actually,
I think
Matt,
that's
what's
wrong.
What's going on here is that when people get their ears checked and their eyes tested, that's the kind of health clinic that has long been talked about. I don't think there's ever been a case, and correct me if I'm wrong, has there ever been a case of somebody using one of these clinics or one of these existing provisions to say, you know what, during school hours, I'm going to go get an abortion, and I don't need to tell my parents? Has that ever happened?
Look, I'm not an expert on, what happens at these schools. My understanding is this would be a new provision. But let me just say this politically, putting aside the issue whether it's right or wrong, true or false. Politically
it's false.
speaking,
Let's just be clear about that.
you asked whether or not this was good for Republicans. If there is not an amendment specifically banning this, you will see there'll be mailers and TV commercials that say candidate X voted with Nancy Pelosi for a big government health care grab that will allow your 13-year-old daughter to have an abortion. That would be very devastating for Democrats. Politically speaking, I don't think this is a loser by any stretch.
Except that I'm not sure some television stations would run that ad because that would be blatantly false. But in any case, Adam, again, as far as the politics, you may think that Michele Bachmann is crazy and you may have ample evidence to back that up, but the Republicans love her.
The Republicans do love her. I think it's interesting that in the context of a healthcare debate, Matt is on TV talking about tattoos and ear piercings. Again, this is all about distractions. Republicans love her, but I have to think that at the end of the day, Republicans don't want a crazy person representing them in Congress.
There you go again. This is straight out of the liberal playbook.
She almost lost to a no-name opponent.
Attacks.
This cycle, there's someone named Terrell Clark, who is a very credible Democrat running against Michele Bachmann. She represents the local constituency in the state Senate and will likely beat Michele Bachmann this time around. So maybe this is last licks from Michele Bachmann, but her distracting people on the healthcare issue, it's going to come back to bite her, and the Republican Party would be very foolish to think that this is the best foot forward they could possibly have. Adam Green and Matt Lewis, thanks as always. We appreciate it. And
thank you.
Alex, I don't know. I mean, whether you have a problem with calling somebody crazy or the congressman who suggested Republicans are Neanderthals, when a member of Congress gets on the House floor and flat out says something that is flat out false, there's a problem there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure the rhetoric of saying crazy is so great, because if you do that, then it's going to come back to haunt you when you're on the receiving end of that. But you're right. Sometimes my reaction sometimes is like, what? Yeah, that's what I do. But no one sees that. I just kind of, I'm somewhat chagrined.
Anyway, Alex, up next.